Communication begins with, again, Teresa Wellborn, whether you're a people person or not, if you're not regularly engaging associates in dialogue about the things that matter most to them, you're not doing your job. All right? So, engagement drives results. If we do this, what potentially could happen from a benefit standpoint? I talked about the business case earlier. I am huge on business cases. I don't believe that we should do things just because it's the right thing to do. I think if they actually contribute to us doing our business better, then we should do them. I'll give you 3 very quick case studies about organizations, different companies, different industries that have engaged in employee engagement, or they have invested in employee engagement and what they've been able to accomplish. One from my backyard, a 2,000-person hospital system. They actually decided, finally after a very bitter nurses' strike, that maybe we ought to look at this thing called engagement. So they retained our services, they retained the services of a top-ranked survey firm, and they engaged on a 4-year process. And here's what happened. They actually were, as I mentioned, they were brought in to help mend fences because of the nurses' strike. They rolled out a comprehensive educational curriculum to all 2,000 employees in the hospital system. And it wasn't a watered-down version for some people. There was a core curriculum that everybody went through over 4 years. What they found was that they had across-the-board improvements in every single. They had 26 different questions that they were looking at on their employee engagement survey, which was not ours. They had across-the-board improvement in every single metric. At about the 18-month mark, there were a couple of them, including trust and recognition, that they actually had as much as 25 to 30% favorable improvements in. But more importantly for them, they have not since then. This has been going on 9 years. They have not had a single union grievance filed since then, and they have leapt to the top 10% of patient satisfaction scores for hospitals of their size. That was pretty significant for them. Another company that most of you are familiar with, Starbucks. Anybody in here a Starbucks junkie? Is there a Starbucks in Rapid City? Okay. Good. In 2004, Starbucks was anticipating a little bit of a rough year. In fact, they had very aggressive sales targets, and their CEO at the time he was forecasting that they were only going to hit about 92% of their sales target. But he said, you know what? We've kind of dampened expectations. Let's go ahead and invest in our employees. They've always done that, but let's do something over and above to invest in them. So they began a very specific and methodical rollout to their 4,000 top leaders and managers of an employee engagement curriculum designed to basically get the ground cultivated, if you will, that engagement readiness. And what they found was by the end of that second year, not only had this was in October of the previous year. By the end of that second year, where they were forecasting down sales, they actually hit 106% of their sales target. In Starbucks revenue, that amounted to, I believe it was somewhere over $20 million in additional profits that year based on that increased sales. Eventually, they said, "Wow, this is that good. Let's continue it." And they pushed it down further into the organization until they hit about 15,000 participants. The last one I'd like to share with you before our break is also a healthcare company. Does DaVita have facilities in South Dakota? No. DaVita is about a 17,000-person renal healthcare company. And they had, which is, I'm told, typical for their industry, a very high turnover rate of almost 50%. This was a home health environment, which is dirty, tough work. So this was average, and they were right at the industry average. But they had done some analytics, and they said, this is costing us a tremendous amount of money to keep bringing people in and retraining them, keep bringing them in and retraining them. They said, there's got to be a better way. Someone suggested to them, let's look at this thing called employee engagement and see if we can't keep people. We know we can't pay them any more than our competitors do, but maybe we can do something else. So what they did was they started with their top 700 managers, and they were trained specifically in how do we engage the people below us? How do we create that serotonin response so that they really feel great about working for us? And what they ended up doing was within 7 months, they cut their turnover to 22%. After 3 years, it was down to under 9%. Now, this was earlier on, but just by getting down to that 22%, they said that caused them, and they used a very safe number of $6,500 per turn. When someone left that they hadn't planned on leaving. Based on that number, they saved over $1 million, and probably it was a 10-to-1 savings over what their total cost was investing in this thing called employee engagement. So regardless of how you do it, what I can tell you is this: the moment that you take it upon your shoulders to make it your responsibility to create the environment where people can really become emotionally committed and invested in the business, it will pay back. It will pay back in many different ways, some of them tangible, like these, some of them intangible. Okay?